The water stopped running 3 weeks ago. Then the lights went out. And now the soldiers are in the streets. Madagascar is burning. And nobody saw it coming. September 25th. That's when it started. Thousands of young people flooded the streets of Antananarivo, the capital city. They put up barricades with rocks and tires. They demanded answers. Where's the water? Why no electricity? How are we supposed to live like this? The government said, be patient. The protesters said, we're done waiting. At least 22 people are dead. More than 100 injured. And the protests keep growing. But here's what makes this different. Here's what should terrify every government watching. The soldiers joined them. Saturday morning, October 11th, 2025.
With the people. The urgency is the restoration of public order and the daily lives of all Malagasy people. We, the military, stand for the homeland. We protect the people and their property. And above all, we live peacefully within society.
Army trucks rolled into downtown Antananarivo. Groups of Madagascar soldiers defied orders. They walked away from their posts, and they stood with the protesters in Antananarivo. Colonel Mikael Randrianirina of CAPSAT led the movement. That's the Corps d'Administration et de Service de l'Armée de Terre, the Army's administrative corps. He stood in front of cameras and said something that sent shock waves through the presidential palace. We did not wake up to fight, but rather to answer the call of the citizens. This is not politics. This is pure patriotism. He said the soldiers are supporting the people. That discipline is still in place. But they're rallying behind the protesters. The police had been using tear gas and stun grenades all morning. When the soldiers arrived, the police left. You remember, CAPSAT is the same unit that played a key role in Madagascar's 2009 coup. Everyone in Antananarivo knows what that means. When CAPSAT moves, governments fall. But then shots rang out. Gendarmes opened fire. A CAPSAT soldier was hit. So was a journalist. Death was recorded, and more than 26 were injured. And Madagascar's crisis just went from bad to catastrophic.
Now, Madagascar is without a president.
As night falls, senior members of the military are meeting with politicians in the building just behind me. The hopes of millions of people in Madagascar now rests on talks being held behind closed doors.
For many, the ouster of Ande Rajoel is enough.
I'm happy now. For 16 years, he did nothing but cause us suffering. He was a dictator, so it is now better because the military has taken power.
Thanks a lot to the military. We are the youth and we need jobs. Because of the president, we don't have work. I'm 28 years old and I've never worked during the time of Rajoel.
I don't know much, but the military knows what it's doing.
Well,
Sunday morning, President Andry Rajoelina's office released a statement. An attempted illegal and forcible seizure of power is underway. He's calling it a coup. But start from the beginning. September 25th is when this exploded. The protests began simply. No water, no electricity. Young people walked out into the streets demanding answers. Some killed by security forces, others killed in the looting that followed. Gangs took advantage of the chaos. Shops were ransacked. Violence spread. Rajoelina tried everything. First, he sacked his energy minister. Didn't work. Then on September 29th, he dissolved the entire government. The protests continued. He appointed General Rufin Zafisambo as the new prime minister. A military man. That didn't calm anyone either. So he made his big offer. Give me 1 year. Just 12 months to fix everything. If I fail, I'll resign. I will step down if I fail after 1 year. I don't want flattery, I want the truth. Those who kept insisting everything was fine are partly to blame for where we are today. Gen Z Madagascar said no. They released a statement saying they won't negotiate with a government that crushes people fighting for justice. They announced more protests for Thursday, then Friday, then Saturday. And Saturday is when the soldiers showed up. CAPSAT isn't just any unit. It's the Corps d'Administration et des Services de l'Armée de Terre. They handle ammunition and logistics for the military. Critical stuff. When they defect, the army loses control of its supplies. Colonel Randrianarina explained their position clearly. We did not wake up to fight, but rather to answer the call of the citizens. This is not politics. This is pure patriotism. We are open for discussion. The discipline is still in place, but we are supporting and rallying behind the people. Translation? We're not launching a military coup. We're protecting civilians. But also, we're not following orders anymore. That's the line soldiers walk when they mutiny. They claim they're still professional, still disciplined, just selectively ignoring commands they disagree with, Ermeyer. Rajoelina sees it differently. To him, soldiers refusing orders equals coup attempt, and technically he's not wrong. Madagascar's soldiers say they don't want power. They say they're just protecting protesters. But what happens Monday, Tuesday, next week? If they're not taking over and they're not following the president, who's running the country? Nobody knows, including the soldiers probably. And this is where Madagascar becomes part of something bigger, something global, something that should make every leader in every country pay attention. Because Gen Z is done asking nicely. Madagascar's protests were inspired by the so-called Gen Z protests in Kenya and Pakistan. Remember those? Young Pakistans who flooded the streets some months ago over inflation, who organized on social media and shut down entire cities. That wasn't random. That wasn't isolated. That was the beginning. Now it's spreading. Kenya and Pakistan showed the blueprint. Madagascar is following it, and other countries are watching nervously. What's surprising, Rajoelina came to power in 2009 through a coup himself. He was 34 years old, a disc jockey and businessman who positioned himself as a reformer. He promised to fix Madagascar's problems and fight corruption. Now he's 51, and he's the one facing youth protests, the one dissolving governments, the one begging for more time. The cycle repeated. Young revolutionary becomes old establishment. New generation rises up demanding change. Violence follows, and nobody knows how it ends. Madagascar's situation is messier. There's no clear ideology driving this. No grand vision like the AES Confederation. Just anger over water and electricity. Just frustration with corruption and incompetence. Kenya's Gen Z protests earlier this year showed that sustained youth organizing can force government concessions. They got tax increases reversed. They created national conversations about corruption. Madagascar's protesters are copying that model. They call themselves Gen Z Mada. They organize on social media. They coordinate protest times and locations online. They refuse to meet with government officials or accept compromises. All or nothing. Rajoelina must go. That's their position. But if he goes, what happens? Does Gen Z Mada have a candidate, a platform, a plan for fixing the water and electricity problems they started protesting about? Or is this purely reactive? Tear down the current system and figure out the rest later. That's the dangerous part. Revolutions are easy. Governing is hard. The soldiers complicate everything. If CAPSAT fully mutinies and other units follow, Madagascar has a military crisis on top of a political one. If they stay partially defiant but don't seize power, the country is paralyzed. If they eventually follow orders and crack down on protesters, the death toll skyrockets. None of those outcomes are good. But one thing is clear. Madagascar is at a breaking point, and the outcome will send ripples across the continent. If Gen Z Madagascar succeeds in forcing out Rajoelina, other youth movements will take notes. They'll see that organizing works, that persistence pays off, that even when governments fight back with violence, young people can win. Pakistan already showed it's possible. Madagascar might prove it's repeatable. And then what? Tanzania? Uganda? Nigeria? Cameroon? How many countries have restless youth populations tired of corruption and incompetence? Most of them. That's the uncomfortable truth. Most African countries have young populations facing unemployment, poverty, and governments that don't deliver basic services. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré came to power through a coup. He promised security and sovereignty. Whether he delivers remains to be seen, but at least he has a vision, a plan, an ideology driving his decisions. Madagascar's protesters have demands. But do they have a plan for governance? Do they have leaders ready to step in? Or is this purely reactive, anger without a blueprint for what comes next? That's the challenge facing youth movements across Africa. It's easier to know what you're against than what you're for. It's easier to tear down than build up. Madagascar is the latest chapter, not the last one. More will come, more protests, more confrontations, more breaking points. And the question is, who is next?